اللهم صل على محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد.
और मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत। अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अन जाबिर इब्न अब्दुल्लाह अल अंसारी अन फातिमा अज़-ज़हरा अलैहिस्सलाम बिन्ती रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि वसल्लम क़ाल समीअतु फातिमता अन्ना क़ालत दख़ल अलैया अबी रसूलिल्लाह फ़ी बअज़िल अय्यामि फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या फ़ातिमतु फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम क़ाल इन्नी अजिदु फ़ी बदनी ज़ुअफ़न फ़क़ुल्तु लहु उअूज़ुका बिल्लाहि या अबताहु मिनज़्ज़ुअफ़ि फ़क़ाल या फ़ातिमतु ईतीनी बिलकिसाइल यमानी फ़ग़त्तीनी बिही फ़अतैतुहु बिही वसिरतु वअंज़ुरु इलैहि वइज़ा वजहुहु यतलअलअ कअन्नहुल बद्रु फ़ी लैलति तमामिही व कमालिही। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलदी अल-हसनी क़द अक़बला वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या अम्माहु फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैका अस्सलाम या क़ुर्रत ऐनी वसमरात फ़ुअदी फ़क़ाल या अम्माहु इन्नी अशम्मु इंदकी राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दी रसूलिल्लाह फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्न जद्दका तहतल किसाई फ़अक़बल अल-हसन नहवल किसाई वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दाहु या रसूलल्लाह अतज़नु ली अन अदख़ुल मअका तहतल किसाई फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या साहिब हौज़ी क़द अज़नतु लका फ़दख़ल मअहु तहतल किसाई। फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलदी अल-हुसैनी क़द अक़बला वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या अम्माहु फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या क़ुर्रत ऐनी व समरात फ़ुअदी फ़क़ाल ली या अम्माहु इन्नी अशम्मु इंदका राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दी रसूलिल्लाह फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्न जद्दक व अख़ाका तहतल किसाई फ़अदना अल-हुसैन नहव अल-किसाई वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दाहु अस्सलामु अलैका या मन अख़्तरहुल्लाहु अतज़नु ली अन अदख़ुल मअकुम तहतल किसाई फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या शाफ़िअ उम्मती क़द अज़नतु लका फ़दख़ल मअहुम तहतल किसाई। فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، حواء مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ وقال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بازأتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأما بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن حولاه أهل بيت وخاصتي وحمتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يعلمني ما يعلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سلمهم وعدو لمن آدهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا ربي، ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوه وبعله وبنوها. اللهم صل على فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي، أتأذن لي أن أحبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فحبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويقصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمير وحي الله، إنه نعم، قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لي أبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم رجس أهل البيت ويطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال علي لي أبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محافل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله وحماه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غماه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وسعدوا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
صلوات. بارگی کا صلوات. افسوس نبی زاگیوں کا شام میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو افسوس نبی زاگیوں کا شام میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو سرگنگے وہ ماں بہنوں کا دربار میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو چھپ کی نبی زاگی نبی زاگی کے پیچھے کسی شرم و حیا سے چھپ کی نبی زاگی نبی زاگی کے پیچھے کسی شرم و حیا سے اور شمر کا ان بیویوں کے نام بتانا سجاد سے پوچھو بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے سادات کھڑے تھے ہائے بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے سادات کھڑے تھے شریک اشک میں رکھا ہوا زینب کو دکھانا سجاد سے پوچھو جب دکھ کرے شبیر نے زنگان قضا کی آفت کی گھڑی کی جب دکھ کرے شبیر نے زندان قضا کی آفت کی گھڑی کی وہ ننھی سی میت بنے ہاتھوں سے اٹھانا سجاد سے پوچھو ہے وہ ننھی سی میت بنے ہاتھوں سے اٹھانا سجاد سے پوچھو खुशेले शकीना को वहाँ गए छुकी गशाल का शब का बुरा हाल जब खुशेले शकीना को वहाँ गए क्योंकि गशाल था शब का बुरा हाल उस गनीशी मयक पर निशान रसी के पाना सजाग से पूछो उस गनीशी मयक पर निशान रसी के पाना सजाग से पूछो सरी गंगे वो माँ बहनों का दरबार में जाना सजाग से पूछो सलावत
صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وسيق الذين اتقوا ربهم إلى الجنة زمرا حتى إذا جاءوها وفتحت أبوابها وقال لهم خزنتها سلام عليكم طبتم فادخلوها خالدين. وقالوا الحمد لله الذي صدقنا وعده وأورثنا الأرض نتبوأ من الجنة حيث نشاء فنعم أجر العاملين. وسيق الذين اتقوا ربهم إلى الجنة زمرا حتى إذا جاءوها وفتحت أبوابها وقال لهم خزنتها سلام عليكم طبتم فادخلوها خالدين. سلام عليكم طبتم فادخلوها خالدين وقالوا الحمد لله الذي صدقنا وعده وأورثنا الأرض نتبوأ من الجنة حيث نشاء فنعم أجر العاملين. وترى الملائكة حافين من حول العرش يسبحون بحمد ربهم وقضي بينهم بالحق وقيل الحمد لله رب العالمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار على رسول الله وآله الأطهار. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलाम पेश खिदमत। मेरी आँखों में जो अश्कों की झड़ी है लोगों, मेरी आँखों में जो अश्कों की झड़ी है लोगों, ग़म-ए शबीर की दौलत ये बड़ी है लोगों। शर्म से शाम के सूरज ने झुका ली आँखें, شرم سے شام کے سورج نے جھکا لی آنکھیں، بنت زہرا سرے دربار کھڑی ہے لوگو، لاش عباس پہ زینب کھلے سر آئی ہے، لاش عباس پہ زینب کھلے سر آئی ہے، منہ چھپا لو کہ قیامت کی گھڑی ہے لوگو، سرخ رو ہو گئی تربیت آغوش رباب، سرخ رو ہو گئی تربیت آغوش رباب، موت سے آنکھ جو اصغر کی لڑی ہے لوگو، اور سینہ اکبر کا جو برچھی سے ہوا ہے زخمی، سینہ اکبر کا جو برچھی سے ہوا ہے زخمی، چوٹ لیلا کے کلے جے پپڑی ہے لوگو، اور لاش اصغر پہ سکینہ کا سنبھلنا مشکل، لاش اصغر پہ سکینہ کا سنبھلنا مشکل، تیر کی نوک تو گردن میں اڑی ہے لوگو، اور بنت زہرا کی مصیبت نہ سنو محسن سے، بنت زہرا کی مصیبت نہ سنو محسن سے، ایک برچھی ہے کہ سینے میں گڑی ہے لوگو، میری آنکھوں میں جو اشکوں کی جھڑی ہے لوگو، غم شبیر کی دولت یہ بڑی ہے لوگو، صلوات۔
صلوات بھیجتے ہیں جناب۔ یہ 4 مصرے ان ایام کی مناسبت سے۔ درد و علم کا مرکز احساس بن گئی، درد و الم کا مرکز احساس بن گئی، بے آس قافلے کے لیے آس بن گئی، بے آس قافلے کے لیے آس بن گئی، اور دن ڈھل گیا تو شام میں غریباں کے ساتھ ہی، اور دن ڈھل گیا تو شام میں غریباں کے ساتھ ہی، بیٹی علی کی حضرت عباس بن گئی، بیٹی علی کی حضرت عباس بن گئی۔ ایک صلوات بھیج دینا۔ کہہ کے یہ رک گئے سجاد، بتایا نہ گیا، کہہ کے یہ رک گئے سجاد، بتایا نہ گیا، کون سا ظلم ہے جو شام میں ڈھایا نہ گیا، کہہ کے یہ رک گئے سجاد، بتایا نہ گیا، اور طوق و زنجیر میں جکڑے ہوئے قیدی کے سوا، طوق و زنجیر میں جکڑے ہوئے قیدی کے سوا، کسی بیمار پر کانٹوں پہ چلایا نہ گیا، اور دیکھا سیراب ذبیحہ کو تو بولے سجاد، اور دیکھا سیراب ذبیحہ کو تو بولے سجاد، میرے بابا کو تو پانی بھی پلایا نہ گیا، اور بھیڑ اس درجے کی ہنستے ہوئے لوگوں کی وہاں، اور بھیڑ اس درجے کی ہنستے ہوئے لوگوں کی وہاں، سر بھی بازار میں عابد سے اٹھایا نہ گیا، اور روئے سجاد بہت دیر تلک زندہ میں، روئے سجاد بہت دیر تلک زندہ میں، لاشا جب بالی سکینہ کا اٹھایا نہ گیا، اور باپ کا سر جو ملا سوئی لپٹ کر سے، باپ کا سر جو ملا سوئی لپٹ کر اس سے، ماں سے بھی بالی سکینہ کو جگایا نہ گیا، کون سا ظلم ہے جو شام میں ڈھایا نہ گیا، کہہ کے یہ رک گئے سجاد بتایا نہ گیا۔ صلوات بھیجے نا۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
فاتحہ۔ بارے دیگر صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وجل فرج۔
آمد ہے اہل بیت پیغمبر کی شام میں، گیسو کھلے ہوئے ہیں عزائے امام میں، سب سر پیٹ لی ہے فاطمہ دار السلام میں، زینب یہ نوا کرتی ہے بلوایا، زینب یہ نوا کرتی ہے بلوایا، لوگو خبر کرو میرے مولانا رسول کو، بلوے میں شمر لایا ہے بنت بطول، بلوے میں شمر لایا ہے بنت بطول، نانا تیری نواسی کے سر پر ردا نہیں، اور اہل شام دیکھتے ہیں کچھ حیا نہیں، عابد غریب مرتا ہے تب سے غذا دوا نہیں، بے ہوش ننھے بچے ہیں آب و غذا، بے ہوش ننھے بچے ہیں آب و غذا نہیں، دل سب کے کانپتے ہیں بدن تھر تھراتے ہیں، اب سامنے یزید کے سادات جا، اب سامنے یزید کے سادات جاتے ہیں، ایک رسن میں 12 گلے و مصیبتہ، روتے ہیں گودیوں کے پلے و مصیبتا، بس میں ستم گروں کے چلے و مصیبتا، خاک ازائے منہ پہ ملے و مصیبتا، خاک ازائے منہ پہ ملے و مصیبتا، مشکل قدم اٹھانا تھا اس دہاں میں، یوں عطرت نبی گئی بلوایا، یوں عطرت نبی گئی بلوایا میں، زینب تڑپ کے اونٹ پہ کرتی تھی یہ بیان، دربار میں طلب ہوئے سادات ناگہاں، اونٹوں سے اتری بیبیاں کہہ کہہ کے علما، پیشے یزید لے گئے ظالم کشا، پیشے یزید لے گئے ظالم کشا، سامان جشن عام تھا، دربار عام تھا، اور ننگے سر حسین کا کنبہ تمام، اور ننگے سر حسین کا کنبہ تمام تھا، ناگاہ بڑھ کے شمرے لئی نے کیا سلام، بولا کہ اے امیر یہ شادی کا ہے مقام، امیدوار خلت و جاگیر کی ہے غلام، حاضر ہیں سر شہیدوں کے اور عطرت، حاضر ہیں سر شہیدوں کے اور عطرت انعام، بڑھ کر پکارا مرہ کے بیٹا ہے یہ ہم شبیہ خاص پیغمبر کا سر، یہ ہم شبیہ خاص پیغمبر کا سر ہے یہ، واللہ اس کی رنجو علم میں بسط بکا، فرزند بوترا 72 جگہ گرا، یہ ذکر تھا کہ حشر کا سامان ہو گیا، گھبرا گیا یزید کہ یہ کیا غضب، گھبرا گیا یزید کہ یہ کیا غضب ہوا، دیکھا تو ہرملا بھی بہت شاد، آتا ہے سر ایک چھوٹے بچے کا ہاتھوں پہ لا، سر ایک چھوٹے بچے کا ہاتھوں پہ لاتا ہے، بولا بتا کہ اس نے بھلا کی تھی کیا خطا، تو نے اسے نشانہ کیا تیر ظلم کا، بچے بھی نہ کھایا ترس تو نے بے حیا، یہ ننھا سا گلا وہ تیرا ناو کے، یہ ننھا سا گلا وہ تیرا ناو کے جفا، بتلا تو کس فلک کا یہ مورے منیر ہے، بانو پکاری بڑھ کے یہ میرا صغیر، بانو پکاری بڑھ کے یہ میرا صغیر ہے، حیران کھڑے تھے سب حرم شاہ مشرقین، مورے سکوت لپنا شکوا نہ شور و شین، زینب نے دیکھا تخت پہ ناگا سر حسین، بے ساختہ تڑپ کے یہ کرنے لگی، بے ساختہ تڑپ کے یہ کرنے لگی وہ بین، ہے نہ موت آئی مجھے راہ شام میں، بھیا میرا سلام لو دربار عام، بھیا میرا سلام لو دربار عام میں،
صلوات There is a request for Surah Fatiha for Saulat Fatima Razvi. She was the niece of brother Wizarat Hussain. She was the daughter of Wirasat Hussain Razvi. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Saulat Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وإياك نستعين الصراط المستقيم صراط غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد ولم يولد قل هو الله قل هو الله صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. The sponsors of tonight's program are Mr. and Mrs. Imtiaz Muswi and Mr. and Mrs. Misbah Zaidi. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Badrul Hassan Zaidi, Azra Khatun, Ali Hasnain, Alia Khatun, Maulana Ali Nakhi Sahab, Sayyid Askari Hussain Zaki Muswi, Hedri Begum, Malika Muswi, Viqar Muswi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Sirat al-Mustaqim. Sirat al-Ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. Bismillah. Qul huwallahu wa lam yakun lahu. Bismillah. Qul huwallahu wa lam yakun qul huwallahu Salawat. Salli ala Muhammad. An announcement that tomorrow at 1:30, immediately after Zohar and Salat, there is a Hussain Day program at Masjid Ali MFI. So please be there tomorrow. It's a very nice program. They have about 4 speakers. It's something that they do every year. It has been going on since 1978 for more than 45 years. So I request you all to please be there tomorrow to attend the program at Masjid Ali immediately after Zohar and Salat tomorrow, inshallah. We have very fortunate to have amongst us today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. That's today and Saturday and Sunday, Sheikh Faiyaz Jaffer. You're all very familiar with him. He is very popular, I believe, at the social media. I am not very versed in social media, but those of you who are, you should know that he's very popular. And then he has the unique position of being the only Shia Imam at NYU. So with a loud salawat, let's welcome Sheikh Faiyaz Jaffer, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, Sheikh. Thanks.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المذلومين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا غريب يا مظلوم يا تشان كربلاء. ما خاب من تمسك بكم ولمن من لجأ إليكم سادتي. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. اللهم صل. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق ولأصدق القائلين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فاصبر صبرا جميلا. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد. Like we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human being as a physical creation as well as with a spiritual component. The physical of each and every one of us is fairly obvious. We have a body, and this body has many limitations. We are limited by time, we are limited by space, we are limited by height, by width, with depth. We have so many limitations as a human being in terms of how far that we can see, or how long that we can run, or how long that we have the capacity to live. No matter how much I desire to grow a couple of inches, I'm restricted. No matter how much I wish that my nose might be a little bit smaller, unfortunately, I don't have a say in that regard. I submit to whatever it is that I'm gifted and whatever it is that I'm given in terms of physical capabilities and capacities, because again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us the fact that we are a limited creation is a means and mechanism of us reminding ourselves just how humble we are in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. God says within the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah, that, O humanity, you were in a state of abject poverty in front of God. No matter how much wealth that we have, no matter how many resources that we have, no matter how much potential that we have as a physical human being, there's always someone who has a little bit more. And we are undoubtedly restricted in whatever it is that we have. That's not a bad thing. In a way, it's meant to serve again as a reminder of our need to be in a state of utter and an absolute subservience and submissiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But alongside with this physical, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also created for us a metaphysical. Along with this physical, we are also intrinsically linked toward that which is spiritual. And this spiritual reality that we are tied to is not limited or restricted in the same way or in the same means as our physical bodies are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a soul. This soul is the I, the essential me, the you, behind any and every single one of who we are. For instance, if I forget my phone at home, I'll say, for instance, I feel like I've lost or I've forgotten a part of myself because of how linked we are to our devices. If we lose a limb, we might say that I feel like I've lost a part of myself. But at the end of the day, if I forgot my phone, or even if, God forbid, I lost a limb when I was walking out of the masjid, in reality, I haven't lost a part of who I am. I am still who I am. I'm still the father to my children, the husband to my wife, the child to my parents. I still hold the same rank in my community, amongst my friends, in my social circle. I'm still Faiyaz, the son of Ibrahim Jaffer. Nothing changes. Only thing that has changed, that I've lost a small portion of something that was physically linked with me. But when I say I, when I say me, when I say you, that I and that me and that you that we speak about is not the physical, it's the spiritual. It's that soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to this human being. And like we know, this soul needs caring, and this soul needs nurturing, and this soul needs cultivating. In the same way that the body requires a sense of care, and the same way that the body requires a sense of cultivation, oftentimes the human being is very negligent when it comes toward their spiritual component. It takes time and it takes effort. The physical body, we train it by exercise. We train it by how many steps we take in a particular day. The physical body, we care for it by getting regular haircuts, by grooming our beards, by eating healthy, by doing all of these things which are not only important, but they're also recommended and encouraged within our religious tradition. But at the same time, the soul also needs to be cultivated and cared for. And the way that we go about doing that is also by exercise. Not the physical, but the spiritual, by contemplation, by reflection, by thinking and having a devotional time period during the course of our lives. in the course of prayers, in the course of supplication and dua and worship and adhkar. Coming to these gatherings undoubtedly cleanse our hearts and they illuminate our hearts and our souls. But again, once it has that sense of intentionality, that we are striving to get to exactly where we want to and where we need to be. And of course, that is in a state of closeness and proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I say all of this, my friends, because many a times when we read the reports, the words, the narrations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the ahadith of the Prophet and his family, peace and blessings be upon them, many a times we fail to truly recognize and understand the uniqueness of their words. And for today's discussion, insha'Allah ta'ala, I want to reflect upon amongst the most beautiful and amongst the most moving and amongst those most important lines that has etched itself in human history as amongst the most powerful and eloquent and charismatic statements that we can extract and deduce within our tradition, but also at the same time amongst the most misunderstood. And these are the words of Lady Zainab, the daughter of Ali and Fatima, peace and blessings be upon her, when she responds to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, when Ibn Ziyad asks her, "O Zainab, what did you see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did what He did with your brother and with your family?" To which she responds with her epic line, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." That, "O Ibn Ziyad, I see nothing but beauty." When we truly have a great and unique grasp of these words of Lady Zainab alayha salam, number one, it demonstrates to us the rank of the daughter of Ali and Fatima. But at the same time, it teaches us the unique station of heart and soul that Zainab alayha salam has on that day, and at the same time, lessons that we can seek toward extracting and deducing in terms of us cultivating and perfecting our own hearts and souls. So for today's or this evening's discussion, really briefly, insha'Allah ta'ala, I want to reflect upon the statement of Lady Zainab alayha salam in three different dimensions. The first dimension is in terms of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes beauty within the whole of Quran. The second dimension in terms of how we are taught within our ahadith to see beauty around us. And the third dimension toward extracting and deducing some lessons from the words of Lady Zainab bint Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Please recite one salawat. So let's jump right into dimension number one of the conversation. What does it mean when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to beauty, or what are examples of beauty as spoken of within the whole of Quran? First off, we have a really beautiful prophetic narration from the Messenger of God, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, in which he states, "Inna Allaha jamilun yuhib al-jamal." That surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves beauty. And many a times, like we know, when we read a narration like this one, the first thought that comes to our mind when we hear the word beauty or something that is beautiful is again something that only strikes the physical eye. We say that this painting is beautiful, that this flower is beautiful, that my child is beautiful, my spouse, hopefully we all feel that our spouses are beautiful and that they feel the same about us. That we often see beauty solely through the lens of the physical eye. And again, we only see our interactions as a human being through this physical dimension as well. But the idea is to go beyond the physical and start to see the spiritual as well. When we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful, does it mean that God is physically beautiful? Of course, we recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond any physical dimension of time and space. So when we see the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not seeing the physical. Rather, we are seeing the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of His creation. The beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of His names and His attributes. Mercy is beautiful. Patience is beautiful. Generosity is beautiful. Love is beautiful. All of those most sublime and perfect and metaphysical qualities and traits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Him, He has those most beautiful names. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the most perfect of names, so call upon Him by these names. So we go back to this hadith from the Messenger of God. He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبْ الجَّمَالِ. That surely Allah is beautiful, the one who has all of these names. And He loves that which is beautiful as well. Meaning He loves our interactions and our mannerisms that reflect all of those most beautiful character traits as well. The physical is important, and we should seek toward beautifying ourselves in a physical manner. But at the same time, it's far more important that we are working on the internal, the spiritual, that of the heart, in terms of it perfecting toward reaching the rank of beauty as well. It is stated that one day the Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, "Oh Ali," he says, "every day when you leave your home and you look in the mirror, you should recite these lines." And he states, when you see yourself in the mirror, recite takbir 3 times. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And then he says, and then raise your hands to Allah and say, "Oh Allah, in the same way that you have beautified my physical form, in the same way beautify my spiritual form. In the same way that you beautified my body, beautify my heart as well." Again, just so that we are able to remind ourselves that yes, we are blessed with everything that we are blessed with, but something that often gets forgotten in terms of the gifts that we have undoubtedly have a responsibility of caring for and cultivating, again, is the spiritual. So where does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention beauty within the Holy Quran? Numerous times, but I want to take a look at 3 different examples this evening. The first one of these showings of beauty within the Holy Quran is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to a beautiful patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in chapter 70 verse 5, فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا. So be patient, but not any patience. Always be in a state of showing a beautiful patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says or speaks to this manner in one other verse within the Holy Quran. In the story of Yusuf, salamullah alayh. In chapter 12, verse 18, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيسِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَىٰ مَا تَصِفُونَ. It's stated that after the brothers of Yusuf, they went out with him on that day, though reluctantly, when it comes toward the perspective of their father Yaqub, they came back with a shirt of false blood, right? Perhaps they took it from a wool, they took it from another sheep or a cow or whatever it might be, and then they brought it back toward their father Yaqub, and they say, "Oh, our father, we're really sorry. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The sheep has eaten Yusuf." At this moment, Yaqub alayhi salam utters these lines that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes within the Holy Quran. He states that when they came back with this shirt, with this false blood, Yaqub says to them, he says, سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ. That number one, your souls have deceived you at this moment. You have distanced yourself and you have made this matter light. Meaning that you have thought of just how insignificant that your brother was in the first place. Or perhaps that Yaqub had a deeper understanding and he knew that something was up. And then it states that Yaqub alayhi salam turns himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he states, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. That surely a beautiful patience is that which is needed at this moment. Why? Because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the caretaker. I know that God has my back at this particular moment in our language. When it comes toward patience, every single human being at various times or another, have to go through trials and tribulations, like we know. We are intrinsically bound by hardship. No matter how much someone says that no longer do I want the hardship of this dunya, in some way or another, we are tied to it, we are married to it the moment that we are born into this dunya. There's no way we can run away from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within the Holy Quran, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرْ الصَّابِرِينَ. He states that we will undoubtedly, with all certainty, try you. We'll try you by your wealth, we'll try you by your health, we'll try you by the loss of loved ones. We will try you in one way or another. You cannot run away from it. So once we accept that, things become a little bit easier. But then God, He concludes this verse of the Quran and He states, وَبَشِّرْ الصَّابِرِينَ. But give glad tidings toward those who are patient. Sometimes we go through difficulty and hardship and we don't bear it patiently. We go through it. We know that we have to go through it. But every moment we are hating exactly the difficulty that we're going through. We're upset. We can't focus. We definitely don't think about God during the course of the process. And then we get to a higher level of patience, where you know that everything that you're enduring at that moment, you have to deal with it. But at the same time, you love to complain about it. You know that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But every time you want to, or you see someone who might listen to you, you'll say, you know what? I'm not feeling well. I'm really sick. I lost my job. I'm going through this hardship. I'm going through that problem. And again, I'm not being dismissive to anyone's difficulties or to anyone's hardship at all. What I'm trying to say is that as a self-reflection, we have different levels of how we deal with patience with regards to any one of our trials or tribulations. On the most basic level, we just have to deal with it, but we really are struggling. On a higher level, we deal with it perhaps reminding ourselves that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we're obsessed with complaining about it. A higher level is we're able to contain it, but for some moments we have some sense of a threshold whereby if we get beyond this point, we're not going to be able to contain our patience anymore. Anyway, there are different levels, and the highest level of patience is what is known as sabr jameel. What is an example of this? An example of this is this example of Yaqub alayhi salam. They came to him and they say, oh, our father, you keep on weeping, you keep on crying. By the way, showing grief over a difficulty that you're going through, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean you're not showing patience. But he responds to his sons in this really beautiful line. He states, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. He states that this grief, this hardship, these tears that keep on shedding from my eyes, they are not because I'm not patient. They're not because of any other reason other than the fact that I am transferring this grief and I'm utilizing it as a means to communicate between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This hardship that I'm in, I'm now transferring it into dua between me and the Lord of the worlds. You see the difference? My friends, when we go through difficulty and hardship, we have to remember that in the same way that the trial came from God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the easiest means to remove that trial or to grant us the gift of patience in the midst of that trial. When Zainab alayha salam, she responds, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, what she demonstrates is a beautiful patience. She's not going to complain to Ibn Ziyad, nor is she going to put the burden on any one of the women and the children who were present around her. She had to serve as an example. And she demonstrates that this hardship that she had to go through, she's good with it. Why? Because she knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been vigilant and watchful over everything that she experiences at that moment. When the 6-month-old is killed in the hands of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, he responds and he utters this famous line, which we recite in the Maqta. We state, حَوَّنَا مَا نَزَلَ بِي أَنَّهُ بِعَيْنِ اللَّهِ. It offers me comfort to know that this tragedy, which undoubtedly struck the heart of Imam al-Hussein in the most horrific manner, it suffices for me. And I'm happy and I'm content knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watched me at this moment. He's happy, he's content, he's in a state of demonstrating utter and absolute beauty in his patience. The first example of beauty within the whole Quran is a beautiful patience. A second example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within chapter 15, verse 85, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَإِنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَآتِيَةٌ فَاسْفَحْ السَّفْحَ الْجَمِيلَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in example number 1 speaks to a beautiful patience. And over here in example number 2, he speaks to a beautiful pardoning, a beautiful forgiveness. Look, people hurt us all the time. We go through hardships, we go through difficulties, particularly when it comes to matters of our relationships. Relationships are tough, man. It's hard to deal with people, believe me. It's hard to deal with people. But it's so important, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to in this verse of the Quran and in others as well, as we're going to take a look at, the importance of letting the little things roll off. Al-mu'min hayyan wa layyan. The believer is the one who is easygoing, who is lenient. They don't allow for all of the small things in life to occupy their minds because there's bigger goals and there's bigger things to accomplish. My friends, like we know more than anyone else, particularly in light of everything that we've had to experience over the last couple of years in the midst of this pandemic, you know exactly what we had to experience here in New York, New Jersey, in this region. How much loss did we see? How much hardship? How many individuals do we know within our own families or within our own communities who were lost? Every single day in this region, somebody was passing away. We were attending funerals, talking to people every single day. Life is fragile, man. Life is really fragile. So where we can let the little things go, we let the little things go. And I know sometimes it's hard, but when it comes toward matters of pardoning or forgiving, we see that there are also different levels. The highest is safhun jameel, is this pardoning, a beautiful pardoning, a beautiful forgiveness. Let's take a look. A first level, for instance, of forgiving someone else is when someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm really sorry I did that. So you say, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. You say it's fine, but within your heart, you still have that animosity to that person. We experience that all the time. Someone comes to you and they say, I'm really sorry. They seek forgiveness from you. You get into an argument with the brother, with the sister, with the family member, with the community member. We can ask for forgiveness, but that relationship is never the same ever again. Fair enough? It happens all the time. A higher level of forgiving is when they come to you and they say, hey, I'm really sorry about what I did. And you know what? You say, I don't know what you're talking about. Come and asking me for forgiveness? Let's just forget that it ever happened in the first place. This is beautiful, but it's not the epitome of beauty. The highest level of pardoning someone else, as we learn from the ahadith of the Prophet and his family, peace and blessings be upon them, is when someone comes to us and they say, hey, I'm sorry. You say, no, you shouldn't be sorry, I should be sorry. But not just by saying it with rhetoric, by saying it with meaning. When that man, he comes toward Ali Zain al-Abidin, alayhi salam, and he condemns the Imam and he curses the Imam and he speaks ill about his father Hussein and ill about his grandfather Ali and Fatima and so on and so forth, what does he respond? He says, if what you say about me is true, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me. And if what you say about me is false, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you. Or that famous example of Imam al-Baqir, which was very, very similar. They come to him and they say, Anta Baqara. They would have a play on his name, are you a cow? They would speak in this really, really ill manner toward the Imam salamullah alayhi. But again, he would respond the same exact way. If what you say about me is true, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me. And if what you say about me is false, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you. Immediately that man, he comes, he kisses the forehead of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and he states, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, and that I swear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places his knowledge and his wisdom and his authority in the hands of those who undoubtedly deserve it. وَأَنْتَ حُجَّةَ اللَّهِ فِي أَرْضِهِ. And that the highest form of forgiveness is when you give someone else the excuse And you take the burden from them because you know how hard it is to offer forgiveness. And a third example of beauty, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions within the Holy Quran, perhaps there are others as well, but for the sake of our conversation, is amongst the most important, particularly in light of many of our community challenges today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in chapter 73, verse number 10, He states, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاحْجُرْهُمْ حَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. He talks about separations between people. Sometimes relationships, they don't work out. Sometimes marriages, they don't necessarily work out. Sometimes we go through things, businesses, partnerships, whatever it might be, where you try your best, you try to bear it patiently, you try to make it work, but at the end of the day, sometimes it reaches a climax or a pinnacle, but there's no turning back from them. Last year when I was here in these majalis, by the way, quick parenthesis, I touched base upon this matter just in passing, on the issue of domestic abuse, on the issue of divorce, and how it creates a whole load of obstacles and challenges. One day when I was leaving, or during the midst of the majalis, someone said, hey, I don't think that's really a big problem within our communities. I said, no, it is a big problem. Domestic abuse and violence is a massive problem within our communities. And 2 women from this community as well, in the course of those days, had also reached out to me to speak to me about issues that they were encountering within their own community. So I say this again with intentionality and with purpose, out of love and out of care. It's so important for us that when we cannot reconcile with someone else for matters of divorce or relationships or otherwise, that's okay. But at the very least, let us live in accordance with the ethos of the etiquette of the Messenger of God, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and his family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another verse of the Holy Quran, وَسَرِّهُهُنَّ سَرَاحًا جَمِيلًا. When you have to divorce someone, then no worries. Divorce them and let them go, and again, in a beautiful manner. When you have to separate from someone, separate from them in a beautiful manner. Right now, I'm working on this case right now, where there's this individual's couple of young people in the community. Unfortunately, their marriage didn't work out for one reason or another, without getting into details. And so in the process of conducting their divorce, he's saying that I am not going to pay her mahar, for instance. Why not? Because this mahar was X amount of money, and I just don't want to pay it. She's the one who wants to divorce me. I don't want to deal with it. I said, brother, you are also at fault in the midst of this marriage. You have a problem, it's not going to work out, it hasn't even been a year, no opportunity for reconciliation. At the very least, close the door, have some dignity for yourself, and have some dignity for this young lady. No, I will not divorce her until she pays me $50,000. True story, I'm not exaggerating here. Until she pays me $50,000 cash, I will not divorce this lady. Again, for whatever reason, they didn't have the terms in their marriage contract, whatever, but the situation is this dire. Every single month, at the very least, I encounter a situation like this, and I'm sure there are others who have come and spoken to you about situations that are far greater than situations like this. My friends, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human being on a level whereby undoubtedly we have incredible potential to illuminate and reflect these most beautiful qualities and character traits. At the very least, if you can't get along with someone who you lived with, then at least separate from them in a beautiful way, in a kind way, showing etiquette, reminding ourselves of who our teachers and who our examples are, and they are undoubtedly the best of creation in Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So when it comes toward beauty within the Holy Quran, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a beautiful patience. He mentions a beautiful forgiveness or pardoning. And he mentions a beautiful separation, meaning do it with care, do it with love, do it with appreciation, and undoubtedly do it with some sense of affection. And that brings me then toward the second dimension. We have an understanding of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to beauty within the Holy Quran. How do we see beauty around us as well? My friends, when it comes towards seeing beauty in the same way that Zainab alayhi salam saw beauty, at the end of the day, it starts with ourselves. If our hearts are beautiful, we're able to see beauty around us. Our eyes, our physical reality and dimension is undoubtedly intrinsically linked with our spiritual as well. If our hearts are merciful and these souls are patient, we will also consistently see patience and generosity and mercy and these beautiful quality traits in anyone and everyone else. Let me give you an example to put this in perspective before I go into some of these ahadith. You know, sometimes when we want to purchase something, you want to buy a new car, you want to buy a new house, we have this sort of, imaging within our mind of the house that we want or the car that we want to drive. We look it up online, we read about it, we ask people about it. And it occupies so much of our minds and so much of our headspace. So every time you're driving, you see the same car that you want to buy. Every time you are driving, you see the same color of the car that you want to. You wonder why. Does everyone have this car? No. Everyone doesn't have that car. But it occupies so much headspace in your mind, so your eyes are immediately intrinsically linked towards seeing that car every single time you're on the road. Is this true or is this not true? Undoubtedly it's true. Undoubtedly it's true. The same reality comes when it comes to our quality traits as well. When it comes toward the statement of Zainab alayhi salam, she states, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." I saw nothing but beauty. It's because the only thing in the heart of Zainab alayhi salam was beauty as well. Let me give you an example. One day it is said that Isa, Jesus alayhi salam, was in the company of his disciples. And as they're walking in the streets, from a distance, they see a dead cow. They see this dead cow. And as they're getting closer and closer to this dead cow, one from amongst the company of Jesus alayhi salam, he states that, "Oh, what a terrible smell." Another guy says, "Oh, like what an awful sight." Another one says, "Oh, what an awful whatever." And as they get closer and closer, Isa ibn Maryam, peace and blessings be upon him and his mother, he states, "Ma ashaddu abiyada asnana." He states, "And how beautiful the whiteness of his teeth." What does Isa alayhi salam see that everyone else doesn't see? Someone sees this ugly picture of this dead cow. Someone smells the awful fragrance. The only thing that Isa alayhi salam sees is the beauty of the whiteness of his teeth. Now, other than the dentists in the masjid today, right? The rest of us would see a totally different vision of what it is that they were seeing. But the reason why Isa ibn Maryam sees what he sees is because the heart of Isa alayhi salam is beautiful. So he sees the beauty at that moment. In another occasion, it is said that there was a group of delegation coming from Yemen toward visiting the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam in Medina. And the Messenger of God was standing outside of the city, on the outskirts of the city of Medina, and he's greeting everyone who's coming. And as he's shaking their hands, he sees one of the leaders of the tribe. And he says, "Salaamu alaykum, alaykum salam." And the Prophet alayhi salam starts to make some small talk with him. He says, "Brother, tell me, how is Yemen?" He says, "Alhamdulillah, Yemen is great. The people of Yemen are great. The food is great. The weather is great. Everything about Yemen is wonderful." To which the Messenger of God, he states, "Sadaqta ya akhi." He states, "You're telling the truth, my brother. Why don't you go ahead and enter?" As he's entering, another man, another head of another tribe from Yemen comes, and the Prophet ﷺ recognizes him. He greets him, "Salaamu alaykum, alaykum salam." He says, "My dear brother, how are things going back home in Yemen?" He says, "Oh Rasulullah." He says, "Yemen is the worst." He said, "The people are the worst." He said, "The business transactions are the worst. The economy is terrible. The weather is awful. Everything is terrible." And the Prophet ﷺ smiles at him, and he states, "Sadaqta ya Rajul." And he tells him to enter. At this moment, one of the companions comes to the Messenger of God. He says, "Oh Messenger of God." He says, "One man came, one head of the tribe, talked about how great Yemen was and all of the people and their interactions and their fruits and their vegetables and everything. And you said, you're talking about how great it is, and you said, Sadaqt. You're telling the truth, and you told him to enter." Another man came and said the total opposite, and you also validated exactly what he said. What's the deal? Why did you validate both of what they had to say? To which the Messenger of God, alayhi salatu wasalam, he states, both of them were speaking in reflection of where their hearts were at. The one who sees beauty in everyone else is because they have beauty in their hearts. The one who sees darkness in everyone else is because they have darkness in their own hearts. And this in itself is a barometer for how we should see ourselves. And this brings me then toward the third dimension of this discussion. When it comes toward the statement of Zainab alayhi salam, what are some lessons that we can learn? When Zainab, peace and blessings be upon her, she utters this line, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila," I saw nothing but beauty. Many people, they fail to understand exactly what it is that she saw. Because they say that, how could it be this tragedy and its magnanimity, the decapitated bodies and the dismembered limbs and everything that she had to encounter, how could it be beautiful for Zainab alayhi salam? On one level, like we said before, Zainab alayhi salam's heart was beautiful, so she saw beauty around her. On a higher level, Zainab alayhi salam was showing this notion of a beautiful, patient, sabrun jameel, whereby she was not, like I said before, going to complain to Ibn Ziyad or anyone else, but rather she knew that her grief was only a grief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could understand. So she would spend that in the darkness of her nights. And when she returns back to Medina, in dua and in supplication to Allah Azza wa Jal for her brother Hussein and for solace in his mother Fatima, peace and blessings be upon her. And a third level, and this is super important, is the fact that Zainab alayhi salam saw beauty because she saw this as a transaction between her family, the Ahlul Bayt, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She saw this tragedy and this sacrifice as Sayyid al-Shuhada as a mechanism for not only for his memory to be etched within history, but for their rank to be given what it was in the world beyond this one. That she knew that everything that she had to endure patiently was an opportunity to reawaken this ummah. And that was a sacrifice worth making. And she knew that all it required was a couple of years of hardship, a couple of challenges that again no human being has ever seen before. But Zainab alayhi salam, she held up that pillar, which is why when Ibn Ziyad, he utters these lines and he states this question to her rhetorically, كَيْفَ رَأَيْتِ سُنَّ اللَّهِ بِأَخِيكِ وَأَهْلُ بَيْتِكِ, that what did you see, what do you think about what Allah did to you and to your brother and to your family? She states, مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا, I saw nothing but beauty. هَؤُلَاءِ قَوْمٌ كَتَبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَتْلِ فَبَرَزُوا إِلَى مَضَاجِعِهِمْ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written death for them, so they rushed toward their places of death. They weren't worried, they weren't concerned, because they saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around them. وَسَيَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُمْ فَتُهَاجٌ وَتُخَاصَمْ, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow for this moment to be repeated, meaning that there will be a moment of accountability in the world beyond this one between them and between the likes of you, O Ibn Ziyad. That for Zainab alayhi salam, she saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it wasn't without her difficulty, and it wasn't without that hardship. And on this day that just passed us by, the first of the month of Safar, according to historical reports, is the day when Zainab and Zain al-Abidin, the family of the Messenger of God, in their greatness, in their magnanimity, in their station in the eyes of Allah, now had entered as prisoners into Sham. It is said that as Ahlul Bayt had gathered outside of the outskirts of the city of Damascus, it is stated that they were told to stand. And a call was made out from one of the ministers of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, that these are the enemies of Amir al-Mu'mineen wal-Muslimin. These are the enemies of the leader of the Muslim world. Do to them as you please. And it's stated that at that moment, celebrations began outside on the outskirts of the city of Damascus. Some began to throw rocks at the family of the Prophet of God, while others began to speak poorly to them. It is said that one man, he comes toward Ali Zain al-Abidin and he begins to speak poorly to him, he begins to curse at him. At this moment, Ali Zain al-Abidin says, "Brother, are you a Muslim?" He says, "I'm a Muslim." He says, "Do you recite the whole Quran?" He says, yes, I recite the whole Quran. He says, have you ever recited the verse, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى? He says, of course I've recited that verse. He says, then know that we are qurba of Rasulullah. We are the family of the Messenger of God who you are commanded to love. At this moment, this man says, who are you? He says, I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. I am the grandson of the brother of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. At this moment, some commotion begins, but not before one more opportunity and one more call is made out that these are the enemies of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. At that moment, once again, rocks begin to pour upon the family of the Messenger of God. It is said that one man, he throws a torch that was lit with fire onto the head of Ali Zayn al-Abidin. The Imam tries to remove it, but his hands were shackled and they were tied. It is said that a few moments later, a man by the name of Minhal, who recognized Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he comes toward him, alayhi salam, and he states, Yabna Rasulullah, is this you? He says, oh Minhal, yes it is. He says, what happened to your father? He begins to tell him some of the tragedy of Karbala, but then he says, oh Minhal, can you bring me a piece of cloth? Minhal says that I left at that moment thinking perhaps that Imam Zayn al-Abidin wants to make sujood, wants to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At this moment, he says that I went to the marketplace, I brought back a piece of cloth, I went to Zayn al-Abidin. At that moment I said, oh Ali ibn Hussein, what can I do with this cloth for you? He says, oh Minhal, help me remove these chains and these shackles on my wrist. At that moment Minhal lifts it, Zayn al-Abidin says, At that moment Minhal says that I saw gushing coming out of blood from the wrists of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He says, please place this cloth under them because this pain is truly hurting me at this moment. It is said some moments later that this family, these children of Rasulullah, they are entered as prisoners into the court of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. At this moment, again, celebrations ensue. At this moment, it is said that there was one lady. Some say that she was the wife of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, while others say that she worked within the court of Yazid. Her name was Hind. She goes toward Zainab alayhi salam and she says, oh lady, tell me, where are you from? At this moment she says that we are prisoners that have come from Medina. At this moment, Hind says that, you know, back in the day I used to work in Medina. Tell me about the family of Rasulullah. Tell me about the family of Ali. At this moment, Zainab alayhi salam, she says, oh lady, what is your name? She says, my name is Hind. At this moment, Zainab recognizes her. She says, oh Hind, if you are looking for Abul Fadl al-Abbas, then look up at that spear and you will see the head of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. At this moment, she begins to cry. She says, tell me about Hussein. At this moment, it is said that Zainab alayhi salam says, if you ask me about Hussein, then look up at that spear. At the top of that spear is the head of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. At this moment, Hind begins to cry. She says, then tell me, where is Kulthum? Where is Rabab? Where is Layla? She turns around and she says, there is Kulthum, and there is Rabab, and there is Layla. At this moment, she is confused. And she says, then tell me, where is Zainab, the daughter of Ali and Fatima? At this moment, Zainab alayhi salam says, oh Hind, look who you're looking at. I am Zainab, the daughter of Ali and Fatima. This is the way they entered into Damascus, my friends. But let me fast forward to the day when they returned back to Medina. It is said that when they returned back to the holy city of Medina, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he alights from his horse. He goes to a man by the name of Bashir ibn Hadlam, who is a poet. He says, oh Bashir, he says, are you a poet like your father was? He says, yes. He says, then recite some lines in honor of my father, Aba Abdullah. At this moment, Bashir, he begins to recite his famous lines, La ahla Yathrib, la maqama lakum biha. O people of Medina, this city is no longer worth living, for Hussein alayhi salam has been martyred in Karbala. At this moment, it is said that al-Banin was standing there. She goes to Bashir. She says, oh Bashir, she says, tell me what happened to my son Hussein. I didn't hear you. At this moment, Bashir says, oh al-Banin, condolences to you on the tragedy of your son Abdullah. She says, I didn't ask you about Abdullah. Tell me about what happened to Hussein. She says, condolences to you, O al-Banin, on the death of your son Jafar. She says, I didn't ask you about Jafar. Tell me what happened to my son Hussein. At At this moment she says, then condolences to you, O al-Baneen, on the death of your son Uthman. She says, I didn't ask about Uthman, tell me about Aba Abdullah. At this moment Bashir says, let me tell you about the severed hands of Abul Fadl Abbas. Let me tell you about the fact that they took an arrow that pierced his right eye. At this moment al-Baneen says, tell me about what happened to Aba Abdullah. She takes this child that she was holding, she rushes toward the house of Zainab alayhi salam. She knocks on the door, the servant opens the door and says that Zainab is not seeing any guests. She says, then tell her that I am her partner in grief. al-Baneen enters into the home, and from a distance she sees this lady who is battered, who is bruised, who has gone through everything that she has gone through. She goes to her and she says, oh lady, I am looking for my daughter Zainab. Zainab says, oh my mother al-Baneen, do you not recognize me? Let me tell you what happened. Normally when a man falls down from a horse, he has his hands to protect him. But oh my mother al-Baneen, when Abul Fadl Abbas fell, he didn't have his hands to protect him. And let me tell you about the moment when Shumar bin Diljoshan sat on the chest of my
ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. With grief in our hearts, with tears in our eyes, we raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us a life that resembles the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, and a death that resembles the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to see beauty in everything around us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to clean and purify our hearts by our love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We ask Allah azza wa jal to grant us their ziyarah in this life and their shafa'a in the next life. Barahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. Matam Hussein.
Sakae Sakina Abbas Abbas Sakae Sakina Abbas Abbas Sakae Sakina Sakae Sakina Zainab ka sahara Abbas Abbas Sakae Sakina Abbas Abbas Sakae गालों पे तमाचे यूं ही खाती थी सकीना रो रो के फ़क़त तुमको बुलाती थी सकीना आ जाओ खुदारा अब्बास अब्बास सकाए सकीना तुम थे मेरी चादर के मुहाफिज मेरे भैया तुम सो गए मैदान में मेरा छीन गया पर्दा سر کھل گیا میرا عباس عباس سکائے سکینہ سکائے سنتی ہوں کہ دریا پہ ہوا قبضہ تمہارا سنتی ہوں کہ دریا پہ ہوا قبضہ تمہارا اے بھیا مگر خیموں تلک پانی نہ آیا پیاسی ہے سکینہ عباس عباس سکائے سکینہ سکائے شبیر کا سر پشت سے جب کاٹا گیا تھا خنجر کے تلے بھائی نے 2 بار کہا تھا آؤ میرے بھیا عباس عباس سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس سکائے سکینہ عباس سکائے جو کام تمہارا تھا کیا میں نے وہ بھیا جو کام تمہارا تھا کیا میں نے وہ بھیا ہاں شام غریباں میں حرم کا دیا پہرا دل کہتا تھا میرا عباس عباس سکائے سکینہ عباس سکائے سکینہ سکائے سکینہ اللہ کسی کو بھی دکھائے نہ یہ مزے اللہ کسی کو بھی دکھائے نہ یہ مزے بے پردہ بہن بھائی کا سر نو کے سینہ پہ اور بھائی بھی ایسا عباس عباس
حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
اکبر کا لہو کی آباد تک پہنچ گیا 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 اکبر کا لہو کی آباد تک دستار سے وہ ماں کی، دستار سے وہ ماں کی ردا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا ہے آواز رن سے آئی کہ بابا میں گر پڑا، آواز رن سے آئی کہ بابا میں گر پڑا، گرتا ہوا حسین، گرتا ہوا حسین صدا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا ہے آواز رن سے آئی کہ بابا میں گر پڑا، آواز رن سے آئی کہ بابا میں گر پڑا، گرتا ہوا حسین، گرتا ہوا حسین صدا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا ہے جس ہاتھ نے گرایا رحم شکل مصطفیٰ، جس ہاتھ نے گرایا رحم شکل مصطفیٰ، نیزہ لیے وہ ہاتھ، نیزہ لیے وہ ہاتھ ردا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا، دستار سے وہ ماں کی، دستار سے وہ ماں کی ردا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا ہے جس ہاتھ نے گرایا تو ہم شکل مصطفیٰ، جس ہاتھ نے گرایا تو ہم شکل مصطفیٰ، نیزہ لیے وہ ہاتھ، نیزہ لیے وہ ہاتھ ردا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا ایسے گری ہے خیمے میں اکبر کی لاش پر، ایسے گری ہے خیمے میں اکبر کی لاش پر، زینب کا خون کھا کے، زینب کا خون کھا کے شفا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا، دستار سے وہ ماں کی، دستار سے وہ ماں کی ردا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا۔ ایسے گری ہے خیمے میں اکبر کی لاش پر، ایسے گری ہے خیمے میں اکبر کی لاش پر، زینب کا خون کھا کے، زینب کا خون کھا کے شفا تک پہنچ گیا کہ بر کا لہو شے کی ابا تک پہنچ گیا۔
چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، واہ جابا کہہ رہی تھی سیدہ کی لاڈلی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر چادروں کا نام سن کرسیوں پر قاتلان چاہتے بیٹھے ہوئے، سایہ دیوار میں تھے سب حرم لیکن کھڑے، با وفا کو ڈھونڈتی تھی دختر شیر جری شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پری بنت علی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا شمر دیکھا تو سکینہ سہم کر رونے لگی، شمر ہو جا دور فضا چیخ کر کہنے لگی، خوف سے مرجھا رہی ہے بھاگ عصمت کی کلی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں چادروں کا دست میں بابا کی سر پر جب پڑی اس کی نظر، اپنے زخموں کی رہی نہ پھر سکینہ کو خبر، دوڑتی بابا کی جانب لاڈلی بیٹی چلی شام کے دربار میں، چادروں کا چادر کون ہے زینب پکارا جس گری فرعون شام، ہائے غربت کہہ کے اٹھا تا میرا قیدی امام، اشک خون کے رو رہا تھا شاہ کا بیٹا علی شام کے دربار میں۔ حکم حاکم نے سنایا مار دو بیمار کو، اس جگہ ہی قتل کر دو قافلہ سالار کو، گر پری عابد کے اوپر ہائے نازوں سے پلی شام کے دربار میں۔ جب علی اکبر کے سر کو سامنے لایا گیا، ہو گئی بے ہوش ماں سے نہ سنبھال پایا گیا، دختران فاطمہ پر نے لگی نہ دے علی شام کے دربار میں۔ چادروں واہ جابا کہہ رہی تھی سیدہ کی لاڈلی شام کے دربار میں۔
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین حیا علی خیر العمل حیا علی خیر العمل حیا علی خیر العمل یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین۔ شام کا بازار عابد بیمار، شام کا بازار عابد بیمار، شام کا بازار عابد بیمار، شام کا بازار عابد بھی پاؤں میں بیڑی توق گرا بار، شام کا بازار عابد بیمار، شام کا بازار۔ بھولے گا نہ وہ منظر نیزے پہ سری سرور، بھولے گا نہ وہ منظر نیزے پہ سری سرور، بے مغنا بے چادر پردے میں پھوپھی مادر اور مجمع کفار عابد بیمار، شام کا بازار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار کی زیبائی کوٹوں پہ تماشائی بازار کی زیبائی کوٹوں پہ تماشائی آدھا کے سفر آئی اور عالم تنہائی وہ بے کس و لاچار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار دربار میں سرہریاں آتے حرم گریاں دربار میں سرہریاں آتے حرم گریاں اٹھنے لگائے گے طوفان محشر کا سامان جنبش میں ہے دربار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد بو پائی تو گھبرا کر بچی نگار ہو گئے بو پائی تو گھبرا کر بچی نگار ہو گئے اس درد میں جو سر وہ تو سر کیسے کر دیدار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار حاکم نے یہ سن پایا تو اور ستم ڈایا سر پوچھ کو سرکایا اور بچی کو دکھلایا چلائی وہ ایک بار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار شام کا بازار عابد سر جا کے اٹھاؤں میں یا باز بلاؤں میں سر جا کے اٹھاؤں میں یا باز بلاؤں میں روداد سناؤں میں سینے سے لگاؤں میں دیکھے بھرا دربار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار دختر کی صدا سن کر درد دلا سے سر گودی میں گیا اٹھ گئے نادان نے لپٹا گئے سر پر رکھی رخسار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد شام کا بازار زندہ میں انی سے غم کر دے حرم ماتا زندہ میں انی سے غم کر دے حرم ماتا ماں پوجتی ہے بے اب کیوں آگے یہ پورنم کیا مر گئی دلدار عابد بیمار شام